Why are shotguns used in warfare, and why did their role change completely from the original in the most unexpected way? Some of the things you're going to hear today might genuinely surprise you. Let's start from the very beginning. The basic idea of the shotgun actually appears far back in history, and not in rifle form at first, but as a cannon. There were many improvised loads where many smaller projectiles, like lead balls, chains, or nails, were loaded in black powder cannons. These were called grapeshot or canister shot. This gave them devastating effectiveness against massed infantry at close range. Basically, a gigantic early form of shotgun from the 17th century. Then someone got the idea to try the same thing but in rifle form, so the blunderbuss was created, being actually the first thing we could call a shotgun. Its short, large bore with a flared muzzle would have a powerful powder charge and a heavy load of many different kinds of projectiles. This ensured you'd hit someone, preferably more than one enemy at close range, and it was used in close quarters combat, and even in naval boarding or ship defense where it was more effective than long-barreled single-shot muskets. But with the evolution of rifles and better rounds, rifled barrels, etc., that greatly improved range and accuracy, shotguns were mostly pushed out of the military role and used more for hunting. But then the First World War would come, and shotguns would gain such notoriety in combat for the first time. But why the shotgun in a time when high-power rifles were at the center of focus in all armies? The bolt-action rifles of the time had quite a long effective range and accuracy, and their cartridges carried significant power. Well, the problem came with trenches when World War I on the Western Front stalled into a deadlock. Here, the 1,000-yard range wasn't helping much when enemy trenches were as close as a hand grenade throw from each other. So before the introduction of submachine guns on a significant scale, there were pistols, revolvers, knives, and even entrenching tools and improvised melee weapons which were more effective in this form of combat during raids on enemy trenches, where you couldn't quite go around with your 1-meter-long rifle and bayonet. So this is where shotguns would come into play on such a significant level for the first, but definitely not the last time. By the late 19th century, shotguns evolved from muzzle loaders to clever repeating shotguns, like lever and pump action. And one of the most interesting was the Winchester Model 1897. America's greatest gun designer John Browning created it for the civilian market. Soon after, American troops were sent to the Philippines where they faced a completely different kind of war. The fighting took place in thick jungle and small villages where the standard bolt-action rifles were too long and slow to handle when enemies charged from just a few yards away. Reloading left soldiers exposed, and accuracy at long range didn't matter much when most combat happened within a few steps, before turning into hand-to-hand fighting with Moro warriors. That was where shotguns suddenly made sense. They were fast to aim, quick to fire, and devastating at short range, which was exactly what was needed there. General John Pershing, later sent to Europe with the American Expeditionary Forces to fight against Germany in World War I, remembered what shotguns had done in the Philippine-American War in 1900, so he knew they might be useful again in the kind of trench fighting that was now unfolding. If you know anything about history, you have surely heard about the trench shotgun, colorfully called by its operators the trench broom or trench sweeper. But you probably didn't know how big of an impact they actually had on the battlefield. At first, shotguns were delivered on Pershing's request to the American Expeditionary Force for guarding prisoners, and by November 1917, the US Army had about 5,000 Winchester shotguns with bayonets, but some 1,000 were taken to be used in frontline experiments. So the M97 was modified for this purpose. The barrel was shortened, a ventilated steel heat shield was added over the barrel so the shooter wouldn't burn himself if he needed to grab it when the fight got really close. For that, it had a standard M1917 bayonet at the end of the barrel. It fired 12-gauge double-AWP buckshot, which was more than effective at such close range. It typically fired 9 pellets. However, the problem came with the shells because before plastic, they were made of paper, which was prone to swelling in the wet conditions of trenches and could then tear apart and jam the shotgun. They had to use full brass ones and later wax-impregnated shells because of this problem. And once this was out of the way, the shotguns were about to make their real and heavy combat debut in the trenches. Scouts and patrols began using them at first, and they immediately noticed how much more effective they were than bolt-action rifles. If you know anything about the M97, you gotta know about this quirky feature. It held 1 shell in the chamber and 5 more in the tube, and most interesting, it lacked a trigger disconnector. This meant if the trigger is pressed and you pump the action as the new shell is chambered, it fires immediately without needing to release the trigger. This is called slam firing, so the firing can be as fast as you can pump, which is much faster than a bolt-action rifle could manage. Not to mention you have multiple pellets going through a narrow trench with each shot, and then not to mention if multiple shotguns were firing. After some isolated use, more shotguns were soon requested. American troops now had a new, very effective tool to clear the German trenches, and it went so far that the Germans, the ones who first used flamethrowers and chemical weapons, formally protested the use of shotguns, saying that they were causing unnecessary suffering. Well, okay, the shotgun blast is definitely going to create a much more gruesome wound than a full metal jacket bullet passing straight through, as lead balls deform and transfer energy more than a high-velocity rifle round, especially at such close range. But if you know anything about how chemical weapons like phosgene and mustard gas work and what death by them looks like, you'll see the hypocrisy in quote-unquote unnecessary suffering. So their objection was rejected, after which they made threats that any American soldier captured with a shotgun or even the shotgun shells would be executed. The Allies responded with even greater threats, so this was formally more or less settled. However, in the trenches, you'd probably want to get rid of the shotgun and ammo for it if you see that you're going to get captured, just in case, because there were some gruesome incidents of what happened to soldiers armed with shotguns who were captured alive. The Model 1897 evolved into the hammerless successor, the Winchester 1912, and despite their limited number, they had quite an impact in trench combat. After the war ended, such shotguns were yet again pulled back to secondary roles and inventory, while infantry rifles evolved again toward range and rate of fire. However, this does not mean the shotgun's war career ended, quite the opposite. When the Second World War came, the shotguns were neglected, so America scrambled to produce and convert more of them wherever they could find them and put them in military use again. They were yet again reserved for secondary roles and military police. However, then came the completely different form of combat than anything seen in the European theater. That was the Pacific, the jungle, and the Japanese. This combination of terrain where you're forced to fight at short range and through thick vegetation, coupled with a more than determined and we could even say a fanatical enemy, made shotguns once again the best solution. US Marines fighting the Japanese across the Pacific Islands found flamethrowers and shotguns to be some of the most effective weapons for clearing well-fortified positions and defending against surprise attacks. They were also useful in the European theater in urban combat, where fighting was house to house, room to room, but they didn't see much action there. After World War II, shotguns were yet again used in a similar way in the Korean and Vietnam Wars, especially the Ithaca Model 37. For example, tankers used them to protect their tank from a swarming enemy while driving through the jungle. An M48 Patton gunner would sit on the engine deck with his back against the turret, armed with a shotgun to guard the rear from satchel or RPG attacks, while the tank commander could fire the main gun from his position in an emergency. Oh, by the way, they also used what is essentially an oversized shotgun shell made for the tank's main gun. These were so-called beehive rounds that turned the tank's cannon into a huge shotgun, firing thousands of small balls or flechette steel darts whose effect at close range you can just imagine. However, no one could expect how the role of shotguns would evolve and change so drastically. After the jungle combat ended, they were transferred to police and special units. The Mossberg 500 series became a new standard for pump-action shotguns, while the semi-automatic ones arrived too. The Benelli M4, for example, is one of the most famous and arguably the best of such shotguns, and it's adopted by the British military. They became quite handy for door breaching, firing special ammunition at point-blank range to shatter the locks, while being safe to the operator without metal fragments ricocheting all over the place. You can ask any Afghanistan or Iraq veteran who's done door breaching missions and house clearing, and they'd almost surely tell you how effective shotguns were for this. They even had underbarrel short shotguns mounted instead of a grenade launcher that could either serve you as a breaching tool or save your life in close quarters fighting if your rifle for some reason stops firing when you need it the most. There is also a less than lethal option, which is basically ammunition for shotguns that fires a rubber or so-called beanbag round. It would hurt quite a bit and probably incapacitate the threat without being life-threatening. However, while the special forces used and still use all sorts of shotguns for special purposes, they are now making their comeback in warfare in perhaps the most unexpected way. If you asked any soldier from the First or Second World War, they couldn't even imagine the way of combat that is going on today. And what has become the biggest threat on the battlefield? Drones. Cheap little, annoying but highly effective tools to deliver a quite powerful explosive exactly where you want it, and to do that from a safe distance by joystick. Both FPV and UAV drones have changed the modern battlefield completely, and nowhere is this more obvious than in Ukraine today. Wire-guided drones are immune to jamming measures, and swarms of them are just terrorizing everything on the battlefield, from tanks and vehicles to soldiers, and they are used by both sides. You might ask why soldiers don't shoot them down. Well, they are trying, but doing so with a 5.56 or 7.62 caliber rifle round against a fast-moving target is not an easy thing to do. So, in the most unexpected way, shotguns became the modern must-have on the battlefield, giving soldiers at least some protection against the biggest threat today. Firing buckshot or birdshot increases the chances of hitting a drone, but it's still far from easy and not a complete solution. Drones often attack in swarms and at high speed, maneuvering to make them even harder to hit, and you have only a few seconds to spot and fire before they reach you. At best, you'd have 7 shells in your shotgun, and there would be no time to reload once you fire them. There have been experiments with shotgun shells made specifically for drones. One clever idea is the net firing shell. When fired from a rifled shotgun barrel, it releases 5 tethered segments that expand into a 5-foot wide net capable of tangling a drone's rotors and bringing it down while also increasing the hit probability. The US Air Force tested these so-called Skynet 12-gauge rounds, which reportedly stay effective up to about 140 meters, far beyond the spread of normal buckshot. The Russians developed a similar 12-gauge Kevlar mesh cartridge that works on the same principle but at a much shorter range. Still, most of the time, standard shells are used. There are even experiments with rifle rounds built in the form of a shotgun shell, where instead of a single projectile, they fire a burst of smaller balls. The idea is that a soldier could simply swap magazines, load one with these rounds, and gain a quick way to shoot down drones without needing to carry a shotgun. But again, these are still experimental and not as common as shotguns themselves. Both sides in Ukraine tend to have at least one shotgun per infantry squad, and always one riding on a vehicle to watch for drones. There have also been successful attempts to mount shotguns on drones and use them to shoot down others. Some of these are even larger, 6-barrel shotgun drones built specifically to hunt other drones, though they could easily be turned against soldiers as well. More and more, the battlefield looks like something that once belonged in science fiction, and it's remarkable that in just a century, warfare has changed completely. Yet, the same weapon still remains in service, now for a completely different reason than it had in World War I.